Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to give you guys some Samira tips and just run through the champions. Please ignore my runes, I just didn't switch them before the game. We'll talk about the runes afterwards. Let's run through the spells for all of you guys that have run into the champion but you didn't have, you know, the energy to go through the champion spotlight. I'm just going to lower her volume a little bit, she's a bit loud. She kind of reminds me of Jaheira from Baldur's Gate 1. If you know, you know. Alright, let's start off with the passive. You have Samira builds a combo by dealing damage with attacks or abilities against enemy champions unique from the previous one. So she has a passive that stacks. Basically, when you auto-attack once, boom, I have an E rank and then it goes up all the way to S. When I reach S, I will cap my attack speed and I will, I will cap my move speed, sorry, and then I'll unlock the ultimate. We'll talk about that a bit later. Another part of her passive is, on top of that, she needs to always vary in between her attacks. So it needs to be unique from the previous one. So basic attack, Q, basic attack, and then as you can see, it's stacking, right? You can combine all your spells to set yourself up, but you can also stack it in such a manner too when you see the duration, while you're reading this style on them. That's pretty cool. Nevertheless, there's a second part of this passive. Her basic attacks turn into melee form when you are at a 200 range. So it's right at this mark, 200 range, right? And this also applies to some of your abilities that can be used in melee form, which transitions us perfect to the Q ability. When I Q with melee form, it does this cone of a slice. And then when I do it in long range, it's kind of like a gangplank Q that needs to be aimed. But the difference between this and gangplank Q is this doesn't apply on hit effects. This only applies crit chance, so you get 25% bonus damage from crit and 25% from IE, which is kind of crazy for some reason. It's not at least it says so in Wiki that IE gives you 25% bonus on top of this 25% bonus. Not a 25% bonus off the 25%, if that makes sense. Wiki might be wrong, but because it's kind of silly. I couldn't believe that a spell would be like this. Usually it's kind of scaled down, like in Senna's case, that doesn't do full damage from crits and so forth. Nevertheless, this is your cookie cutter, cookie cutter spell that you max first. It goes down all the way to a 2-second cooldown, and this is something that you weave between your autos to make sure that you stack, right? Your next spell is something that a lot of people consider as very oppressive. W is the one that blocks projectiles. The key thing about this spell is that it attacks twice. This is super important later when we discuss the potential combos that you can do with your passive. Because, as we said, the damage that occurs needs to be unique from the previous one. So if we take a look at this, you can, for example, let's just auto-refresh the cooldowns. You can, for example, do W first as a first hit, and then you do another hit, right? And I dashed, and then W gave me 2 stacks of my passive, which is very important for the combinations that you're making because this attacks twice. Another important thing to note is all your abilities, excluding the ultimate, do bonus damage if you are in melee range, just as your auto attack. So you have this, you have also your W, right, that does bonus damage if you're in melee form. You see the 25 that show and 26. It is based off of missing health, so it's improving depending on your situation. Next thing in line is the ultimate, which depending on your stacks is going to look like this. Pretty much like Vala from Heroes of the Storm, if anyone played it, or like the Demon Hunter. There's an ultimate where she kind of just shoots bullets everywhere. And the key thing about this ability is that, you don't have a cooldown. It's tied completely into your rank, the Daredevil Impulse, the passive, and if you stack your passive again, you have ult ready again. 3 seconds is not a... there's no way you're going to stack most of the time like your passive by the time this goes. Another important thing to note is you don't need to keep comboing in order to maintain your passive, right? So you can weave in autos in between and so forth, and you don't need to rank up in order to maintain this buff. I didn't mention anything about the E, but the E is just a dash. You can dash to enemies and allies. The key thing about this is it refreshes on cooldown when you get a takedown, so that's an assist or a kill. And on top of that, you also get attack speed. This is super helpful. On top of that, when you combine this with other spells like the Q, you get kind of this Q animation that goes through the dash. The important thing to note is that you can use Q at the end of the spell and you don't need to do it at the beginning. Very similar to Yasuo EQ. So combos, you know, if we think about combos when it comes to this champion, the most important thing is that you just vary your spells. It's just important. There's many different type of combos that we can go through. I think the most important one to keep in mind, in my opinion, is the one where you trigger your W twice. So if we take it slow, the first auto, Q, auto, hit, dash, and then you have ult on. Alright, so this is your full combo, auto, Q, auto, into W, E. But it's important that the W hits in range. In other fights, maybe you're going to fight a bit slower, maybe you play around 2 Qs, maybe you have Essence Reaver, you take it slow, and then boom, you eat a biscuit, and then you explode, right? That's also completely possible. Alright, so there's many combinations that you can try out. It's just important that you, in order to stack fast, you want to always, you know, find variety. You know, you don't want to find yourself in a situation where, I don't know, I can't think of a situation where you don't do it. It's almost natural, right? But the most important thing, as I mentioned, just W hits twice. Use that to get your stacks off. Another key thing about this champion is that your ultimate and your Q is affected by lifesteal. So even if, you know, even if you slash 2 minions, I mean 2 minions or 2 champions, you slash them both, you get full lifesteal on this. So avoid buying Death Stance, because Bloodthirster just gives you so much more value. Death Stance is going to give you a 5% lifesteal on your AoE spells, including your ultimate, while BT is going to give you a 20% lifesteal at the same price. So this is very important to note. It's also important to note that it got nerfed for ranged users. The only reason why you would ever go this item is for the armor and magic resistance, which in some cases can be very valuable, but don't knock the shield here of Bloodthirster. This 20% lifesteal is going to be very juicy for you at a much easier price point, but the item path of the Death Stance is of course much easier, and Aegis and armor and magic resistance in some games is very OP. So take this with a grain of salt. I'm a big fan of BT because in the end this champion has crazy AD scalings. When we think of crazy AD scalings, we look at this, which has been hotfixed now. It was 600% for over 2 seconds, so basically 0.6 of your maximum AD. In each hit, there's 10 hits, so that makes it a 600% scaling. Now it's 500% scaling with a lower base damage. A lot of players enjoy buying Essence Reaver, which is, you know, a little bit questionable, but it allows you to, you know, combo a bit more conveniently, and your W cooldown is quite large. E cooldown, Q cooldown, these things matter. I don't like Essence Reaver too much because of the nature of how low the Q cooldown already is, and also the cooldown of ultimate, but this is open for a debate. There might be, you know, a conversation where Essence Reaver, just the cooldown itself allows you to combo so much easier, so you just go for it in order to reset more frequently. So I can get behind Essence Reaver, no problem. The key thing is, in terms of itemization, what you want to look for is all in all, just the usual kind of a misfortune type build, where you go Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge is very important, because for some reason, correct me if I'm wrong, someone in the comments, if you take a look at the wiki, it is kind of crazy that this is going to get a full effect from the 25% bonus of Infinity. If that's the case, it's quite wild. Let's just try to play around in this to make sure that it works that way. So we need to make sure that we have 80 AD. We get some cash. Thank you, Boris. We're taking your daughter's tuition. We're just gonna get a bunch of trying to calculate this to make sure that the number that we land on is correct. So we don't want to buy Infinity. Let's just buy boom. And then we have 40-40, and this puts us at 100% crit. So the damage is 232. 232. Right? 232. We remember it. We sell this. We get an IE 232. It should be a. What is the math of this?
Virtue? I've got a few. Vices.
232. Let me just open a calculator to make sure that I'm not crazy. Calculator. 232 times, divided by 125, and then multiply that by 150. And yeah, it's actually true. We get full damage from IE for some reason. So this does 25% bonus damage from crits, but also it just straight up gives you the full bonus from an Infinity Edge. So that's a big reason why you want Infinity as soon as possible. Infinity Essence Reaver is all pretty juicy. I can believe a world where, you know, Essence Reaver might be forgotten in the future, or there might be a situation where, you know, it's your core items. I can also imagine a world where people experiment with Manamune. I don't get to play this champion that much because, yeah, it's banned a lot. Manamune could be very interesting because as you walk to lane, you have a lot of spells that you can use. You can use Eon minions. You can stack this very, very freely. The reason you would go for Manamune is, as mentioned, it's just so juicy when it comes to that AD value that you're getting from the ability. And then, of course, you know, your Q, your lane range Q applies it, your ultimate doesn't apply it, but it's all about the AD and how OP Manamune is in general. But her lane phase tends to be a little bit weaker than expected, unless you have a support that synergizes well with you. The strange thing about Samira is that champions that synergizes well with her happen also to be her counter. I know everyone was rushed to the idea that this champion is broken, and understandably so. We saw some crazy highlights where she one-shotted entire teams. But if you want to beat Samira, you want to look to pick the good old hard CC champions that really mess you up. Imagine a Katarina without a dash. How would you approach it? I think champions that are naturally good against Samira is champions like Lulu, Alistar. You can pick a Malphite, that's also a very good one. Hard CC in general that kind of snaps her in half, because she does indeed need to go very, very deep in order to, you know, make stuff happen. Lifesteal synergizes super well with her, and that's the biggest danger. And I think with careful setup, you can accomplish super much. Another reason why Alistar might be good into a champion like this is because of 500 attack range. This is like right at the edge where Alistar loves to play at, and she has no, obviously she has a dash, and maybe there is some room to outplay if someone, if Alistar kind of like WQs and you outplay. I could imagine that would be like the future of like a Samira matchup. Let's say your support stands here, your ally stands here, and then you dash. Like there's a lot of room for exciting plays with Samira for sure. Like you get Alistar comboed, and then maybe you are able to react, maybe not. Who knows? We'll have to test that some other time. This is just me kind of brainstorming. Another thing to maybe experiment with that I haven't tried with yet, and maybe you guys have some interest in doing so, is just going for a lethality build, because, you know, in the end, you have good AD damage, you have a little bit of magic damage, so that's why it might be counterintuitive, and at the same time, your abilities all scale very well with crit, and that's why I'm kind of hesitant to try it, but it's just an idea that I've explored in my mind. Nevertheless, final thoughts in terms of runes. I think go-to runes should definitely be Conqueror. I think Conqueror feels very, very nice and lines up very well with how she wants to play. Let's just reset this. Conqueror is super good. You can choose between Triumph. You can go Presence of Mind if you feel like you have mana issues. She tends to become mana heavy in all-ins. In lane, she is a little bit more convenient. When she does a couple of rotations, she tends to fall low on mana, but her base mana is pretty high, so, you know, it's not that troublesome. But to be fair, I ate 3 biscuits here, so keep this in mind when we think about it, because biscuit, of course, increases your 50 mana cap. Don't go Glacial Augment, go Conqueror. Triumph is good. Triumph is really good. Of course, you want to go Lifesteal. Lifesteal is a busted stat on this champion because it works completely. You know, these shots apply Lifesteal. That's why you see those crazy moments where she survives. This is crazy good. Each shot can also critically strike. Yeah. So and so forth. So you want to go Bloodline. That's what I'm trying to get at. And then, of course, coup de grace, last stand, or cut down. It depends on the game. Second rune tree, I honestly found the most success with Ravenous Hunter and Taste of Blood. I saw some players experimenting with, sudden impact, which is not too bad either because you can apply it and so forth. Pretty straightforward. But I'm a fan of Taste of Blood. If you want to pick 80 carries that are good into Samira, long range is pretty good because look at this dash range. Her dash range isn't the longest, right? She requires champions to synergize with her in order for her to dash in and so forth. She might need to use her passive, which I didn't really speak about before. Another part of her passive is if someone actually CCs a champion. The reason I didn't mention it naturally was because I just can't set it up in this game. So if someone CCs this champion, I can right-click that person, similar to Swain passive. You know, when you pull someone when someone gets CC'd, you will dash to that champion, be in attack range already, in E range, and you will stun them up for another half a second, which is absurdly OP. They increased the dash range. This morning was 850, now it's 900. I'm not sure why they increased this, and I'm also not sure if this dash range is increased by rapid fire cannon. Now that I thought of it, this was just another idea that I had in mind now as I'm looking at it. So some of these questions that I'm raising right now, if you guys have the answers, please put them in the comments below and I will heart them, and everyone can enjoy those. So that would be super, super good for all of us. I think the knee-jerk reaction always when champions, people don't understand slay an entire team. I think it's just about, drafting correctly against her. I think her numbers are a bit overtuned even after the hotfix, and we'll have many moments of craziness, especially in solo queue because there's less organized play and you can't really prepare a draft against her. But if you're playing against a Lulu, Alisa, Malphite, and all this jazz, like an Ashe can be tricky as well. Draven can be very, very tough to play against with this champion because she's short range and it's tough to all in, and you'll just get, E'd if you try to dash in. So there is definitely ways to beat her. All in all, exciting champion, interesting champion. W mechanic is a bit busted, but the cooldown is very long, so especially in lane phase it tends to get quite punishing when you use it to block like a projectile, right? That's why you want to play some of those poke lanes into her, like the Caitlyn, like the Ashe, a lot of the champions that are currently meta. I could imagine a world where it might be difficult to play like a Twitch against this champion, because Twitch is another one of those champions that is currently meta. But all in all, I think I've gone through most of the points that I wanted to go through. I mentioned builds, I mentioned the runes. I hope you guys can enjoy this champion and also beat her. Additional tips in terms outside of just picking champions is just pay attention to her W cooldown. So because even in fights when everything is going well for her, W cooldown is very, very long. And that's when you need to lay down the punishment. W only destroys missiles, so set E or set W or any AoE abilities don't get blocked by this. It's important to keep this in mind. There are some things like barrels, like Gragas barrels, that I'm not too sure about how it works, but I believe you broke it because it's something that is tossed away. If it's coming from the body or something like that, or it's coming from the ground, or maybe even the sky, I think you're in the clear. I'm thinking like a Cho'Gath Q and so forth. All in all, that's it. That's it for the Samira champion spotlight. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Please let me know if you enjoyed this, if it was helpful, if it was just a bunch of shit that you guys already heard. Anyhow, my opinion about this champion, it's that it's exciting. I think it's strong, but I think definitely you can deal with it. Because looking at the attack range, it's just, it's just quite short, Like it's decent, but it's not like crazy, right? It's not crazy. Right? And yeah, abuse crit and abuse lifesteal. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.